Hey everybody, and welcome to my in5 series where I cover a topic in about 5 minutes. Ren writes in with a great question, but it's pretty technical, so if you're not interested in me just talking, feel free to skip this video. But the question is, or the statement is, I have a USB-C cable that I use with my iPad to connect to my synth and controllers without an adapter. The iPad recognizes the keyboard plugged in. I haven't tried it yet with an MPC. Does the MPC transmit MIDI over USB? So I'm going to start by just saying the answer is yes, it does transmit MIDI data over USB, but I don't think you're going to, the answer I'm about to give you isn't probably what you were hoping for or interested in. And I know what you're looking for, but there are two types of MIDI devices. One is a host, which means it has the drivers and other things that allows it to communicate with other USB devices. Then the other type is just a USB device. So your iPad or computer, or even like in the case like the MPC, or even the OP1 that I've got sitting right here, they have what they are USB hosts. They have the drivers to at least operate certain things. And the reason why is there's what's called class compliant audio and class compliant MIDI. And basically, it's just a standard format that allows devices, if they're compatible with that, to talk with each other. And it has to be the host that initiates that conversation to the device. So in the case of what I'm assuming you're connecting your iPad to with your USB-C cable to your synths and controllers, those synths and controllers are going into a device mode, or they're only in a device mode, which means they need a host that can send the connection over, establish it with the drivers, and then talk to it to be able to send audio or MIDI data over that class compliant protocol. The issue you're going to run into, and this is why I'm saying technically yes, but also technically no, is because both your iPad and the MPC are USB hosts, they're not going to negotiate down to being a USB device. Now, on the MPC, what you can actually do is put it into controller mode. And when you put it into controller mode, it becomes a USB-C device, and it is not a host. But the problem is that if you connect your iPad to it, the MPC can function as basically a surface controller, and it will actually function as a audio device for you. So you can send your audio from the iPad out through the Akai MPC's audio inputs and outputs. That said, I'm assuming you don't want to go into the standalone mode, or not standalone, but the controller mode, because if you're in controller mode, all of a sudden you don't have access to the sequencer, the synths, the effects, or any of that stuff. So that's why if you're using the iPad, what you really need to do is have, I know you didn't want it, but you need something like this hyperdrive that gives you a USB connection. And then I think I get over here. Yeah. And then from there, I've got for example, the Roland USB interface UM1. And the reason why this works is it basically puts in between the iPad. It says, great, you can still be a USB host. This basically allows you to connect a USB device, and then it converts that USB protocol over to MIDI. And the MPC knows how to talk MIDI while it's in its, I'll scare quote, host mode. No problem. It will talk MIDI. It'll allow you to use the sequencers and all that. So I know this has probably been too technical for most people. Most people probably don't care about all of this, but just a long way to say, like, that's how it works. Now, just a couple other things that I'll note is like the OP1, it can be both a host and a device at the same time. Well, maybe not at the same time. It is when it boots up, it decides, am I in a host because somebody can then connect something to me, or does it boot up and it sees a host on the other end, and then we'll switch over into device mode. And it is pretty seamless. Doesn't always work the way that you hope it would, but I'd say 9 times out of 10, it works perfectly fine. And it's just about like what order are you turning things on, plugging them in, and all that. The Roland SP404 Mark II is only a USB device, so it will never be a host. And that's why you can actually connect the iPad over USB-C between an iPad and the SP404 Mark II, because the iPad just sees it and it's like, oh, there's a USB class compliant device that has audio and MIDI, and it will just power up, set up all the right device drivers, and just work. So I know this has been a long explanation, but I hope that helps you understand the differences and kind of what each device, what some of these devices are doing and why they're doing it. I couldn't do a rundown of every single device because they all operate differently, but specifically for the iPad and the MPC, you can't do it directly. You need something in between to do that translation if you want to be able to use the MPC in standalone mode and the iPad software at the same time. Anyway, everybody, thanks for stopping by. Keep making music, keep having fun. Remember, if it sounds good, it is good. And peace.